Hello, welcome filmmakers. Once again, it looks like Facebook isn't working. Great, love it, awesome, good times here on live tech problems. Well, we have YouTube, so if you found us on YouTube, great. If you are here and you are thinking about doing your own book, or you've been thinking about doing your own book, you are in the right place. Many people I know have written screenplays and then decided to do a book and publish that so that they could then sell their screenplay. We're going to dive into all that today. If you are here watching, please tell us what your book you've been thinking about writing is about, or anything you want we can talk about during this half hour with you. I am with Micole Williams, who is a filmmaker and a self-published author, and does publishing. Like, you help indie filmmakers or whatever they're called, authors. You help indie authors get their books published. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So would you just tell us a little bit about what you do specifically when it comes to publishing? Because obviously you're not trying to fight the big guys, so you're doing a whole different route. What do you sort of base your self-publishing on?
And that's a great question. I started off as a self-published author and segued into indie publishing. They're kind of used interchangeably, but they are a little bit different. You can, as a self-published author, pretty much go a non-traditional route and, just maybe plug into indie publishers or plug into assisted self-publishing. So indie publishing is just being there before and then being able to help guide another person through that process, whether you're a consultant or whether they choose to use you in a different way. So yes, in the past, I've used a couple of different services, in the sense of, like, I've kind of been there before and then decided to turn it around and own my own process. And so as an indie publisher, I could, just help them either with the coaching side, helping them write the book, or helping them find the people who can, be put in position so they can go through that process and finish their actual process from pre to production to post-production, for those of us on the other side of the world.
Good morning, Summer. So we are talking all things book publishing in the vein of, if you're a filmmaker or a screenwriter who wants to sell your project, how do you create that IP? And many people, even showrunners that I know, are writing a book to have that IP to go out into the world. So, Micole, when it comes to writing, one of the hardest things, I think, is just starting, because it feels so overwhelming. What's one thing you tell writers or budding writers to do when they first just feel overwhelmed?
I would definitely tell them to free themselves of that fear. Let fear fuel you. I feel like the fear, on the other side of fear, you have an interesting story, because it's always a thing of just breaking through that space that makes you feel uncomfortable. And studies have shown, and we even know from the movies and the books and the stories that we love, if we really do some deep diving and digging, we can kind of find out that the people who were creating that, it may have been some personal struggle that they had to overcome to get it out to the world. So just embracing that, letting it lead you, letting it just be, an ability to get you to the next stage, because it's all about, stages. Once you get through one, you can get to the next. So
what is the first stage? Is it, besides, obviously you have an idea, before you outline, is there something you would say you should do this before you even start outlining to flesh out your idea?
Yeah, that's a good question. It really depends on the project. It really depends on what the client or friend or associate is trying to do, what the student is trying to do. So I really start with a consultation and just allow them to tell me where they are. And so if they are working on, for instance, a book or a story, I try to figure out what stage they're already in. I also try to figure out what their stumbling blocks have been, as well as what their strengths are. So we do kind of like a talk, more so than anything, just to get an idea of where they've been, so they can kind of understand what the process looks like and where they need to go, because everybody's project is so different. And it's just a matter of fine tuning it so that they have clear cut ways to be successful in this particular spectrum.
When it comes to the I'm going to write this book step, uh, do you suggest outlining first, or do you say, hey, just dive in and let it out?
Yeah, and I like both of those concepts. There's a rule of thought more so. I feel like if they're a person who's more on the creative side, and they're, I always ask them like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Because that lets me know if they're just doing a passion project that they have to get out of their system. Because I know that feeling. When I started in 2009, I was that person. It was a story haunting me throughout college, and I was like, as soon as I graduated, I was able to have time to finally, conceptualize this idea that had kind of been brewing over time. So if they are more in the creative space and this project is something that is just moving them and they're not necessarily wanting to continue down the road as an author, maybe they just have in this season they need to get that out. I definitely feel like there's a different writing process that you would need to go on. You are more allowing yourself to just let it out, let it just be, brainstorm, character map, and just be a little bit more instinctive and more organic with your process. But there's another side to self-publishing and indie publishing. You, like a producer, I always tell people, if you are from the industry, you easily can just kind of translate a lot of stuff if you think of it as you're the producer of your book, because what you're going to end up having to do is think kind of like reverse engineer. So yes, outlining is important, and that just goes for everybody, but everybody has a different style. But outlining prep work is always going to ensure that you're able to execute and you see where you're going and you have your beats and all of that stuff. So I just think sometimes it's a little overwhelming if you kind of throw a certain technique at everybody, and it's more so just start at a real place. That's what the story needs. And to carry that out, you're birthing that. So I always kind of still stick to the creative aspect of it and still stick to your birthing, something. So let's just kind of let things actually naturally flow and evolve over time.
So let's say someone's writing a fiction novel,
Mhm.
and is there a page count, for instance, that someone should strive for a minimum page count to sell a book? Or does that not matter? Is it just sort of tell the story you need to tell?
It could be tell the story you need to tell, and then definitely know what the format is, definitely know what the tradition is, definitely, have that set up. It's always good to also understand what your comparables are. So yes, if it's a novella, it's going to be less than a certain amount, like 20 pages. So anything over 150 in that range, even past that, you're definitely working with a more traditional novel. And so I definitely think it is important to kind of measure your process, whether it be page count, even before you even finalize anything, like you're measuring that. Sometimes people are good at measuring that as they get through the process while they're writing. And especially with us being in November, some people know NaNoWriMo, or National Novel Writing Month, is happening all this month. People have been trickling in and getting their number count, their page count in. And some people are very motivated by that, but some people are motivated like me. I'm kind of more of a chapters person. You know what I mean? It also could be your type of day. When is your best time to write and that type of thing. So there's different ways to measure it, but yes, definitely understanding what the standard book count or page count, and just those things come in handy, but they're not as big of a issue. It's more so knowing that, be organic with your story, and then you can fine tune along the way.
When you say you're a chapter person, what does that mean exactly?
For me, I don't like looking at number counts in the sense of like page counts. I don't that doesn't motivate me that much. I'm more motivated thematically. So I like to give my chapters, if I'm writing a novel and even if I'm writing nonfiction, I like to be motivated by more of the message. And so a chapter to me is more digestible. It's more, okay, I can step to this and have that conversation on the page, as opposed to it being so mechanical. But some people are like that, and that's fine. So it's just a matter of, for me, it works best to do chapters and make up for if I miss some, because a lot of us are working multiple types of jobs anyway. So if you have that stringent routine, sometimes when I have a stringent routine, I don't do too well with that. I do well with having some room to breathe and hitting my goal by the end of the week or the month or that type of thing. So like for instance, I told myself this year I will write a new project every month, right? And so chapters are how I'm dividing it. I owe myself some chapters because it's been a rough kind of month going on. And I kind of told you about that a little bit. And anybody who would listen, because yes, we sometimes know that life hits and life is lifing and that type of thing. So chapters work for me.
That's great. When people are in their writing phase, and let's say that they've got their outline, they've written the whole book. What do you suggest they do? And maybe it is the outline phase and phases within the book, but when do you suggest they get feedback? Should they work with like a professional editor? Should they start with a friend? What do you suggest on that?
That's a great question. I would tell them to celebrate right now and congratulate. People don't realize it's a huge undertaking just to write. It's an invisible space, right? And so just to even be able to do the outline, also write the book, yes, you definitely need a professional editor, especially if you are self-publishing. You are missing that aspect of that traditional run of how many edits they do, how many proofreads they do. They have a machine running for this particular process. So you are needing to have a couple of editors, on hand. And that's what I was mentioning earlier. Sometimes you can get assistance with finding the right people that can aid you in getting your book. So you're not a book published, so you're not alone, because it can feel like that already in the writing process. And then, of course, when you get to that part where you need feedback or want it, be open to it. I would enlist a circle, a strategic circle, I would say. I would probably let people read with a purpose, because people are busy. If they're not an editor, to digest somebody's work, you want to already start with what are they reading for? And so, yes, if you do want a circle to read, I maybe want to let them all just read the same thing. I may let them read for plot, or read for structure, or read for voice, or read for character, or read for something specific, or read for authenticity. Like I was writing screenplay. I already finished it, and I went to an event this weekend, and I was talking specifically to Native American creatives and professionals, and I wanted to make sure I knew where to plug in, because I want to make sure that I'm being sensitive to their community. So maybe even thinking about a sensitivity reader, or someone that can really make sure that the story is spoken in a organic and credible voice. So yes, definitely enlist those people, be thinking about those people, and give them time and give them grace to get your reading done. And yes, the editor is crucial. Editor is crucial. We all have horror stories if we don't have that. And I know, like when I started in 2009, that was one of the hardest parts, really not having an editor that I knew by my side for every stage, and having to take some chances with that, and then having to reprint my book under my own company in order to get things even more fine-tuned along the way. So yes, finding those pieces beforehand, that's very wise and very sustainable.
What is the cost somebody can expect to pay for an editor? And is that one of the services that you offer?
Good question. So what they should be expecting to pay is, I would say, quite a bit. I'm not trying to be funny, but that's kind of where you want to put a lot of your dollars, because it's going to go the furthest for you. There are several different types of editing. I don't serve as an editor, but what I do as a consultant is find you editors depending on your particular project. So I will have sometimes on file, like 3 that I prefer. But if your project is totally different than even what they do, that's where I come in to find specific pieces for that, because it's either through a coach that I'm serving as, or the person that is your vendor coordinator or management. So with that, going back, when you're looking for an editor, interview those editors. Is it line editing that you're looking for, content editing that you're looking for, a bit of both? Their prices are going to possibly be more so by the characters, or by the words, or by the pages, or by how far along or how far back you are. So there are a lot of different variables to factor in before really saying that there's an amount. But you're looking at sometimes on the lower end, maybe 500 to maybe 5,000. That is a possibility, and it's a big range. So it's just a matter of just setting yourself up to know that piece of the puzzle definitely comes after, just finding the right fit, and definitely having the novel or the manuscript already as close to greatness as you can. That makes your life a lot easier, and it's a more cost effective when you have that on your end. So maybe like when you were saying like friends and having, other professionals or associates look over it with that purpose, hopefully they're fine tuning it before you even hand it off to an editor. You're kind of with that mindset of, this is the best that I can do at this time that I'm handing over today.
Well, and I think as filmmakers too, I mean, this is something that they should be used to. Like, I read so many scripts that we'll throw out after 5 pages because just things like the grammar is so bad. You can't even check your grammar. I'm not reading your script. So an editor or in screenplay, getting coverage is worth whatever you're paying. You can make a cover through Midjourney, Canva, whatever, but don't skimp on your editor for this stuff.
Yes, definitely.
So now we're at the phase, we have a book done. We've written it. We've got an editor say it's good to go. What is the next step for that author?
Okay, so then that's where that reverse engineering comes in handy. Thinking like a producer, you know that you've already kind of worn many hats anyway, but you're putting together puzzle pieces to make this successful. So there were also other pieces like an illustrator possibly, or a book designer or a formatter, or, those types of things to look at that happen more so in the editorial and manufacturing process. You're also thinking about your future and how it's going to be launched and giving people something to talk about. You're also thinking about a sales and marketing campaign. You're also thinking about the livelihood or the shelf life of your book. You're also thinking about the networking aspect of it. So as a producer, you wore your writer hat for the most part, right? When you're self-publishing, but now you have to put on that other hat, that producer hat. You need to go out and basically sell this thing. So selling may be coming in different forms for different people. I always ask clients or just people in general, some people are not motivated by that aspect of it. People come into the book business for different reasons. Why are you there? That's where you go back to that original question, not even the purpose of that project, but what were you doing as an author? Why do you want to be an author? Why do you want to self-publish? You go back to those early consultation notes or early, deep dives, and just really ask yourself and measure your goals that way as well, because everybody's situation is going to be a little bit different based on what they wanted to do initially.
And I want to remind everybody that we have about 10 minutes left. So if you have questions about the book you wanted to write, or you've written and don't know what to do with, or anything going on, please put those questions in the comments box. I love it. It's like, I'm telling you, man, live is just the worst. It's like lights go out, alarms go off. But here we are. So now that I guess what I want to back up here. So we've written the book, we're ready to go out, thinking like a producer.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that I've written a book because I want to I want to make my book seem like the next it thing, the project that somebody should want to buy, a studio should want to buy to make into a screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
Are there suggestions you specifically say to take for that route?
For that route?
When you're like out there doing marketing and trying to publish?
Definitely. If that individual is focused on, I would call that, even it could go in 2 different directions. I started off in transmedia, basically, where you have a single story that that you'll be able to showcase and display across different mediums. And that could be an option where you can pair up with partnerships that allow for you to segue into those spaces. So somebody who already has more experience in that particular genre or that particular market, it would be wise to early on be communicating with them. I'm kind of in a similar boat right now because when you're dealing also with IP, that's another aspect of where you're in that same boat. So many different genres or so many different pre-existing intellectual properties kind of are factored in order to make those particular moves. And so there are many stories of how it can go wrong, but there are some people who are successful as self-published authors. Normally we see those types of transitions, books to film or major blockbusters through more traditional sectors, but there are people who are able to, through people loving their book or maybe through certain connections, they're able to make that particular move. And it's just really to be honest with yourself and just determine if that's the route you want to go. Yes, you're going to have to network and you're going, and sometimes you don't, but you're going to have to be aware of who those power players are for you to really get into those rooms and seal those particular deals.
And I feel like filmmakers, if you do have this book, definitely hit up indie production companies, because right now, for instance, my company is looking for a very specific type of script. And if you know what we're looking for and you say, I have the book, but I don't have the script, that still could entice us to be like, well, let us read the book, because we want to have something that's already sort of laid out. Now, if someone wants to go, I don't want to self-publish, I want to find a big publisher so I can be the next Harry Potter, whatever. Do you have suggestions and thoughts for people to get in those doors?
I have, that's not where I'm passionate, but I will say the traditional route, yeah, if you want to do that, there's been more experience with that, or more, long list of steps with that. If you're going that route, you have to really follow the format of whatever, similar to mandates in the film and TV industry. You have to really be aware of what the publishing houses and the big four and big five, who they are, what they're looking for, what those agents and publishers want. And it's a waiting game. And some people are luckier than others on that waiting game. But if you are in the mode of waiting and wanting to do that, because that's a bigger machine, I wouldn't say it's easier. They're both their own thing, but there's definitely a checklist for that. So this is on the adventures. So yes, I definitely feel like if you're going the traditional route, you're sending out the queries, you're sending out your proposals, you're finished with your manuscript. If it's a fiction novel, if it's a nonfiction novel, you have an ability to maybe sell your proposal, and then they may buy you time to, finish the actual novel by a particular deadline, and then you can negotiate, possibly if you're lucky enough for that contract. That's where you'll start, being able to negotiate that and really keep an eye on your rights.
Yeah, see, I feel like the more we talk about it, the more it's kind of like indie filmmaking. Like, yes, I want to be in the studio system and make the big dollars, but I like the indie world for having control over my own project. I can go out and make it tomorrow if I want with no money, whatever. So that's what I get excited for about the indie book publishing space. And I feel like all the filmmakers who are watching who want to write a book, whether it's a narrative book, a fiction book, or it's just, like I'm currently working on the Working Director book, which is totally just sort of life experience, but more like tips for you to actually go out and be a working director.
Right.
Like there's you can literally go just publish on Amazon if you want. But I do want to talk to you about that before we go, is like, do you suggest people go and do the throw it up on Amazon, let them print it for you way, or do you have another way you prefer indie publishers go?
I will definitely say from experience, and now I'm not, people are definitely able to make their own decisions. I am more inclined to be okay with them because that's what I've had experience with when I'm branching out myself as an indie publisher. When I was a self-publisher, I did what some people would, we all frown upon now, the vanity press route, which, is kind of long dead and gone in 2009. That's when a lot of us who wanted to embark on this, those are what, was kind of clawing at us. And
so basically meaning you went out and just paid to print a bunch of books so you could have the books to sell and give out and all that.
Exactly. And so now that print on demand concept, I am a fan of, and, I don't necessarily, promote anyone in particular because it's so many different projects, but that's something that I've liked. The transition from Create Space to now KDP, and then Ingram Smart is also another route that I would suggest to those who want to definitely be distributed in a different way, where when I wanted my books in actual, like the physical copies in actual bookstores and universities, I had to go that route as an indie publisher. So Ingram Spark is also something to think about. At first, they were the ones that were allowing the hard copies, and then Amazon is now doing that as well. So yeah, I feel like that's a good place where you can start. You still keep your best practices up, and focus on quality control and things of that nature, and with your editors and things of that nature. But yeah, that you are in good hands, so far.
Well, I think it's kind of great to be able to go, I have a book that's on Amazon. And for the most of the general public doesn't realize that you could self-publish that.
Yeah.
So it does look really cool. It's, you get it up there, you can make the Kindle version, you can use the AI to make the audio book version if you want. So there's so many options for filmmakers to become authors.
Definitely.
Screenwriters to become authors without having the machine. You don't need the machine that you need as a screenwriter. So I think that's great.
Yeah, less red tape.
We only have a few minutes. So first, before we go, what are your books that you currently have out so people can find them and support you?
Oh, thank you. I actually have 4 books. I call them my babies. I bring them where
four.
Yes.
I'm tired thinking of one.
So these are my fiction novels. I'm going to bring them. Tangled Web of True Love Tales. Which one is this one? Is the first one, and then this was the basically the aftermath. So Toxic Ties trilogy is Queen D Syndrome, Volume 1, and then
those are great covers. Who did your covers for those 2 books? You did your own covers?
Yes, and now let me go back though. I work with an illustrator for the girls. Her name is Alicia Bromfield. I worked with an amazing illustrator to, craft all 7 women and so on. But as far as, I've always, and I wouldn't recommend, designing your own book. That's something that if you're passionate about that and if that's your background, do it. But if not, definitely.
Yeah.
And these are the last 2. Miss Live for Life Lessons is for my ELA teachers out there. And then this is for everybody. 35 Love Notes to Self. Be gentle with yourself. I need that.
I love. Summer says, my twin sister self-published her children's book with Amazon. Aw. I know a lot of people who want to do children's books, which is another whole nother thing, because you got to have so many illustrations usually, unless they're like, chapter books. So good for anybody who goes that route. Exactly. And then the final thing I want to ask you is, what are you, as far as your filmmaking world, how has your being an author and self-publishing translated and maybe helped you? Because I know you've talked about how being a producer helped you write. So how has being an author helped you as a filmmaker?
As a storyteller? Yeah. And like I said, it just goes back to that transmedia passion, just knowing that storytelling is storytelling. I feel like, the author aspect of it, it's nothing like writing on a page. I wrote my first book in a journal, on different journals, and I compiled them all together. And it was just something about that tangible side of it, and just knowing that you're, resting a story in a sacred place, and you're just hoping that, whoever's opening that book, they have an experience. And I think that was the most fulfilling thing, just to get your story out in the world and just make your statement piece early on, and then build upon that. So just even writing like these women-centric stories based on women in the South, that's something that's very important to me. They're all enterprising women or trying to figure things out along the way. And I just think that that's something that I'll keep going no matter what. You'll notice a heroine in my stories, whether they're documentaries, whether they're, shorts, and whether they're the feature or even a play right now I'm working on. So it doesn't matter where you start. It just always matters where you finish. And I just want to keep writing as long as I can.
That is such a great way to end this. I love that. That's a beautiful, for those people who want to write a book, but want you to hold their hand with one of your million services that you can offer them. Because I'm telling y'all, she does everything from like ghostwriting to literally holding your hand as you write your book. So where's the best place to find that information and meet with you?
Thank you. The best place will be my website, eclecticallyu.com is where you can find me and just a little bit more about, that assistance.
Great. eclecticallyu.com. And that is you. Thank you so much for doing this, Micole. When we first met, it was literally, she was coming to interview for one of the Black Magic Collective initiatives. And within 2 minutes, I was like, I love your energy. You must be on the show. What do you know? What can you do? What can you talk about? So thank you for sharing with us, sharing your energy. I hope that your new year is better than the last month has been for you.
Oh, thank you so much. I hope so.
And to everybody else, thank you for watching us all year. This is our last one. We'll see you in 2024.
Thank you, Jen.